I'm not usually called a sleaze bag. We make educational products for schools and homes. Not very controversial, and I don't think a lot of people think we're sleaze bags. Obviously, really gratified. When Liberation Day came along, the future of our family business was threatened significantly. We've been a family business for over 100 years, and we're also a mission-driven business. We're trying to give kids a great start in life. That plus the relationship with our employees and their families who depend on us was a threat to our existence. And so we had to pursue this and to have the court stand with us that in our contention that it was an unlawful tax, and to also to reinforce the rule of law meant a lot to us. We're proud of this. I think the case has been remanded to the Court of International Trade, who very often oversees this kind of the resolution of this kind of dispute. Also, the federal government has made numerous filings in our case and other cases indicating that if the tariffs were declared unlawful, they would return them. So the fear mongering, the hand wringing about how difficult this is, it's hard to take seriously. They're very good at taking the money. I think they should just reverse the gears and give it back. And I expect that's what's going to happen. Well, when we finally toted it up for 2025, we'd spent over $10 million plus additional monies on the expenses of moving our supply chain, and that's putting aside the cost of litigation. And we've spent more in 26. I don't have that number. So it's a very substantial sum. We borrowed it from the bank, and we'd like the money back. But, we danced between the raindrops, and we finished the year in a healthy condition, and we're ready to start growing again. We've got to get out of this cycle of being reactive and run our business. For sure we did. Our marginal tax rate last year was over 100% between federal, state, and IEPA taxes. You can't run a business where make $1, spend more than $1 in taxes. That has a very sad ending. And we can't do any good for people if we get sick. So we had a modest mid-single digits price increase last year, but we also strongly believed we would in this case, which we did. So we elected not to raise our prices for 26. And so we're trying to give the money back by averaging our price down. And I would hope that by the end of next year, our prices will be where they would have been but for the tariffs. So we're trying to navigate back to something fair and reasonable as quickly as we can. Some customers actually reimbursed us for tariffs. So, of course, they'll get their money back with the same interest that we collect from the government. But it's very difficult to assign us the task of putting Humpty Dumpty back together again when the government shoved them off the top of the wall. So I'm not sure how we do that. The approach that we've taken when considering this equitable question is to return our prices as quickly as we can to where they would have been. Remember, we're in an inflationary environment too. So costs rise every year. So we're trying to average it down. And I think that will be welcome with our customers.
When there's all this uncertainty, it is difficult to, make certain plans. We're still going to have to do business the same way that we have been. We're still going to have to make conscientious choices about our buying, about how keeping our customers at the forefront of our mind at every turn.
It affected a lot. So we pretty much have seen price increases across the board, anything from 10 to 30% increases. So we've had to choose a lot, be selective.
Tariffs. It has all been approved by Congress, so there's no reason to do it. All we're doing is we're going through a little bit more complicated process, not complicated very much, but a little more complicated than what we had. We'll be able to take in tariffs, more tariffs, and the Congress people and the Congress.
The Canadian tariffs last week. There's been votes in the Senate against it.
Yeah, because we lost 2 Republicans.
The country we're living in, and this raid at this building is emblematic.
To Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American.
13 of the top 20 cities in homicide rate have Republican governors. None of these cities is.
They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't.
What kind of a country are we living in? And this raid at this building is emblematic.
To Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American.
I mean, this is what President Trump does, right? When he loses something, he makes up these ridiculous comments. Absolutely not. The laws on the books that the president can pass tariffs under really put important safeguards for our economy and for consumers. And you know what? If he thought he could have gotten Congress's votes to pass all these tariffs he's been doing, he would have done it. He would have done it in a way that wouldn't have been challenged in the Supreme Court. And the fact is, I just don't think he had those votes. So it's going to be fun to see how he tries to sell this failed policy to the American people.
And I think there's really two big items in his agenda. One was Big Beautiful Bill, and the second was these tariffs. And they're kind of merged together to say the tariffs would help pay for the losses of revenue in the Big Beautiful Bill. And that was never true to begin with. But nonetheless, the loss of tariff revenue will require about $175 billion in tariff refunds. Today, technically, the Supreme Court didn't talk about the refunds, but it's generally understood that those refunds would therefore be required. And then secondly, it's really going to lead to questions of whether President Trump will try the other mechanisms in trade law to try to replace that tariff revenue. Here's what I'll say is that markets definitely want this tariff revenue to kind of go away.
播报新闻是我的日常，必须时刻保持妆容和皮肤的最佳状态。当来到人生中最重要的时刻，也是 KS 逆时奇迹帮助我轻松驾驭，闪闪发光。KS 逆时奇迹活肤露全效精华、精华霜，多达5种 EGF，6大冻龄关键成分，保湿效果让我非常满意，小细纹也不再困扰我。我就是我自己的最佳女主角 ，KS 让我从容自信，光彩动人。我是我人生中的大女主。我的最爱，我做主。KS 逆时奇迹系列热卖中，下单请上快点购，透过中天新闻网 App 下单立减50，或输入 CTI 推荐码有额外折扣。